I was reading some comments and a lot of people want to see this comparison. Over here we have the Sony Bravia 3 and we're going to put it up against the Samsung Q60D. Now I will tell you that the Bravia 3 is an entry level for Sony's lineup. They do have the OLEDs and all the more expensive televisions. And when it comes to the Q60D, this is starter to get the QLED technology that gives you the dual backlights. Now I'm not going to go over all the specs. I'm not going to go over all the design because I made full videos on both televisions. But what we're going to do in this video is just compare the picture test so you'll know which TV is the best one for you and your hard-earned money. Let's get into it. Before we get the video started, I want to show you that I am going to put both of these TVs in their native movie mode. And I'm going to go ahead and reset them back to factory. And I'm also going to make sure that anything that changes the picture automatic through auto power saving modes is turned off. That way we get the most accurate picture based off of the color profile in each television, and there won't be any kind of automatic setting happening that might change the picture. The first thing we're going to look at is SDR mode so we can see what kind of colors really pop on these TVs. Now looking at this scene right here, it appears that the Samsung looks a little bit more natural, but I will say that the colors on the Sony definitely pops out a lot more. If you look at all the details in the background, you can see that it is picking up a lot more color volume than the Samsung. But what it really comes down to is the different colors that you like on the television. If I pause this scene, look at the background and you can see that the Sony brings out a lot more shadow details. In my opinion, I'm liking the Sony better for movies just because I can see a lot more colors and everything seems to be a little bit more natural looking. I think overall both TVs is going to be great for just about anyone. However, when watching movies, I just think the Sony is going to bring in a lot more colors than the Samsung in this particular format. Now, don't get me wrong, the Samsung does look really good, but if you look at all the colors in the background, you can definitely tell the difference in how much the Sony is performing over the Samsung on this particular demo. And here's another scene for you to check out. Again, the colors on the Sony, I think looks a lot more natural to me over the Samsung. But I think if you was looking at these two TVs in a store with those amazing demos on them, it'll be hard to detect which television is better for you and your family. Again, we're using the Apple TV. Let's go ahead and enable HDR and see which TV looks good because both of these TVs are low nits ratings. What I mean by that is both of these TVs are less than 400 nits or at least in that range. So a lot of times when you watch HDR content, the TVs will get a little bit darker compared to the other TVs on their higher end lineup. So you might be getting some glare from my wall over there, but I will tell you this is a scene. And look at the contrast level on both televisions. The Sony looks inky black, but on the Samsung, I can see a lot of the background coming in. And if you look at the Sony, you can definitely see the details in the yellow ladder. So let me go and turn off the light so we can get a better look at these TVs. So if you're trying to compare these two televisions to figure out which one has the brighter picture, more details, I think it's getting very obvious which TV is going to perform over the other television. And again, I didn't change anything. Everything is in the cinema settings. Now, of course, you can go into the TV and you can make all types of adjustments, but I will tell you that both TVs are going to perform decently, but you can't help but realize that Sony and their color science is hard to match, especially in the price range that these TVs are in. Here's another demo scene from Ant-Man, and you can see that it is in a brighter scene. I will tell you that you're going to see the backlights on both televisions because, again, these TVs don't have local dimming zones, but when you just compare the picture quality, you'll have to decide which one do you want. Something that's more natural like the Sony, or do you want something that's a lot brighter like the Samsung? And here's one of the last things I want to show you on this demo. This is Doctor Strange. What do you guys think? I just really think the Sony's bringing in a lot more detail than the Samsung, but I love both brands. Samsung is fantastic. But again, when it comes down to comparison on these two models, you guys asked me to show you some demos, and here we go. Which TV do you like the best out of these two models? The next thing we're going to take a look at is sports on both of these TVs. Now, I will tell you that the Sony definitely has richer colors, but the brightness on the Samsung really stands out. If you look at the crowd in the background, you can definitely see a difference in the contrast level between both TVs. And for me, what it really comes down to is, do you want that darker contrast look to your sports, or do you want that brighter scene that the Samsung can produce, because it is much brighter on the standard setting on these televisions because they don't have a sports mode. And for me, looking at the motion on these TVs, they look very similar, so I can't personally pick out one versus the other, but let's do a motion test to see how well they perform. To do this motion test, I basically just went into both TVs and turned motion off altogether, so we can see the difference, starting off with the Sony Bravia 3. So what we'll do is we'll go through these settings here and see what we get. And even with the smooth settings, it brings up these artifacts on that top line there. Now you can go into custom and we can do what they call smooth. And with the smoothness, if I turn it down, it does get smoother as I turn it up, but it still has those artifacts. And then we have clearness, which makes the TV a little bit darker, but it really doesn't clean up that much. And then we have cinema motion. If I turn it off, so that's kind of like what you're going to get on the Sony. And again, these TVs right now are in standard mode, not movie mode. So I'll go ahead and factory reset this one. On Samsung TVs, they call it picture clarity. And if we go in here and put the automatic, it gets much smoother than the Sony on this particular scene. Now you can also go in here and customize, and they use terms that we're used to, like judder. And judder basically allows you to change the speed of the video. So as you can see there, that's with it all the way off. And you can crank it back up and it gets much smoother. Now they do have one called clear motion. And again, just like the Sony, it does make the picture darker, but it does clean up quite a bit. So I would say that when it comes to motion, the Samsung is doing a much better job than the Sony. Now, as far as gaming, which TV is better? Now, first of all, I have put both TVs in gaming mode, and we're going to check out the game bar on the Sony. It does have a motion blur reduction, a black level EQ, and it does have a crosshair, so you can put that little square in the center whenever you're playing certain games. And it does have a crosshair type, so you can adjust it to a color that you like. Now, the Samsung gaming menu is much robust, as you have these gaming genres where you can switch everything around to get the best action. You do have that virtual point, just like the Sony has, and it does have the Gaming Motion Plus. The Samsung does show you the frames in HDR at the bottom. And another thing you have is you can go into more settings, and this allows you to have a mini map auto detection, which zooms into those little maps whenever you're playing your games. But other than that, both TVs should be pretty decent for gaming. Just want to show you the differences. Now with the gaming mode turned on, just looking at the TVs, again, you're going to see that the Samsung is much brighter for gaming, as I can see right here, without going in and adjusting any type of settings. And look at the difference in the white levels. If you look at the Samsung, it has that nice white look to it, where the Sony still has that cinema look to it in comparison. So that's kind of interesting that they stick to the theme of making sure that you get that cinema look on just about any input that you use. And by the way, here's the name of the game if you was wondering about it. Now so far, just playing this part of the game, I would tell you that I definitely see a better experience using the Samsung, just because it's just so much brighter in details. But what do you guys think? Look at the color differences between these two. And I know this is getting very confusing because each TV has some certain qualities about them that you'll like. And I'm pretty sure I have a good idea of how to summarize this video with just the experience of putting both these TVs side by side and playing with them. I'm going to give you my final thoughts in just a moment. But here's some gaming again. And if you look at that sky on the Samsung, it's much bluer. Again, the Samsung is definitely outperforming the Sony when it comes to gaming. But you know, it comes down to Samsung makes their own software and they have the ability to control everything, where the Sony does use Google TV, which is excellent. It's just one of those things where I think on certain things they don't have full control over it like Samsung does. So here's my thoughts, and if you haven't watched the full video, go check those out right after this video so you can really get the details of both TVs as far as the unboxing, the design, and all that good stuff. With that being said, I would say if you're a movie watcher most of the time, hands down, I'm going to go with the Sony. The colors on it is just phenomenal. Now, when it comes to gaming, the Sony does a really good job. However, I will say that if you have a PS5 plugged directly into it, you get the HDR tone mapping, and I'm running it through a selector to be able to show both TVs at the same time. So I don't think that activated. So in all fairness, when it comes to gaming, the Sony is going to do a great job. But I will say that the latency on this is not as good as the Samsung. In fact, if you go play back some footage, you'll notice that the Samsung loads up slightly faster than the Sony. Now, if you're a gamer, hands down, Samsung. It's just, the colors are much better than what I saw. And addition to that, when I did motion tests, I think it's going to be really good for sports. Now, both TVs are great, but it really comes down to, if you're a Sony fan, this one's going to be a great television. And if you're a Samsung fan, I would definitely step up from the DU series and get the Q series, because you get the dual backlight and all that technology. I also want to say is that the Samsung has a lot more features in it, like you can do dual screens, and the application store is pretty robust. That's all I have on this video. Tell me what you think in the comments below. And if you want to go check out those other videos, leave a comment and tell me if I got something wrong. I'm Tech Steve. Thanks a lot for watching, and I'll catch you on the next one. Peace.